Okay, we're going to go ahead and get started. My name is AJ Whalen on behalf of SpinFX IT. I want to thank you for joining us for our webinar today. And I absolutely love this topic. I think the opportunity for extending the use of employee documents across HR and recruiting functions is a huge one. And I appreciate you joining us to go through this and discuss the topic and hear about the successes of one of our customers. So before we dive in, just a quick housekeeping note. We will be using the Q&A function in Zoom here today, not the chat function for questions. So the chat function may not be monitored. So if you have questions throughout the session, go ahead, enter them into the Q&A box, and that's where we will go. We'll address as many as possible when we get to the question and answer section just before the end of this session. So a quick agenda run through. I'm going to do a quick about SpinFX IT. I think most of you who I've seen on the list here are familiar with us, so we won't take long with that. And then I'm going to turn it over to Stephen Gallo, and he's going to walk through kind of the overview and the use cases for employee documents, what we mean by that, what are employee documents, where they're used, and then we'll talk about specifically about Strato documents by SpinFX IT. And Stephen will cover off the success story of one of our customers who used it specifically in a recruiting a candidate offer letter use case. He'll do a demo, and after that, we'll go through the Q&A and that should be a wrap on the session. So hopefully you'll enjoy this. So what I want to do before we really dive in is throw up a quick poll question here. This helps us gauge a little bit in terms of your use of your organization's use of employee documents for SAP SuccessFactors. So, the question on the screen, if those of you who are online with us can see, is how do you currently generate and distribute employee or candidate documents in your SAP SuccessFactors systems? So if you have a moment, ask you to go ahead and let us know how you currently do that. That's helpful for us because there's different ways of doing it. Obviously, there's standard functionality in SAP SuccessFactors for document generation. There are tools and things like Strato that we're talking about today. And there are organizations who really don't follow it or use it at all. So I'm going to give this another few seconds, and then we will just dive right into it. So actually, while that's going, I'm going to leave it up on the screen. Why don't I do the about SpinFX IT? For those of you who aren't familiar with us, SpinFX IT is an SAP partner that specializes in HXM and payroll solutions that optimize efficiency, that help business processes across the entire spectrum from core HR through payroll, and obviously when we talk about documents that touch on other areas like recruiting and talent. Been around for about 17 years. We've got a lot of customers across the world, and you can see on the screen here in terms of which countries and which language support we have. But we welcome you to join our website and to check out more information or find us on the SAP store and read about our solutions there as well. So I'm going to go ahead and end the poll here and share the results before we move any further. So if we look at the results, we've got about 46% of you that are using the SuccessFactors document generation, 31% using third-party application, some of you doing it manually, and one brave soul who doesn't generate any employee documents out of SuccessFactors today. And I think it depends on your business use case as to whether that would be the case. So that should help our speaker, Stephen, kind of frame the topic a little bit. So thanks to everyone for participating in that. And speaking of our speaker, I want to introduce Stephen Gallo. He's a product architect with more than 9 years of experience across SpinFX IT's solution set for HXM payroll. And before he joined us, he held various roles as HCM solution engineer, functional analyst at a large SAP HCM customer. And he's going to lead us through this presentation. I will rejoin everyone after the demo has finished. So Stephen, go ahead.
Thanks, AJ. So hey, everybody, as AJ said, my name is Steve Gallo, product architect for North America, and I'm going to talk to you today about Strato, but not just Strato. We're going to talk about document generation in general. We're going to look at a use case that I personally worked on in 2020 that was really successful and really kind of shows the power of what you can do. I always tell people when you're looking at, when you're looking for document generation as a cost savings, you can be a hero. There are significant savings in that because it is a very manual process out there. Because really, we're talking about paper. That's what we're talking about. In today's example, we're going to look specifically at this one. We're going to look at a recruitment scenario out there. And as you know, at SpinFX IT, we have a variety of products out there, but I do like doing the document generation because it covers so many different areas of HR. We have some products that primarily work in payroll, but when I get to do the document generation stuff, we're covering the whole gamut, right? Because across an employee's life cycle with your organization, there's going to be a lot of things that you have to produce for them, starting with the offer letter, which is kind of what we're going to take a look at today. But I'm sure you can look at this screen and see examples of things that your company is probably sending out: verification of employment or confirmation of employment, whatever you want to call it. Total compensation statements, termination letters, right? Just somebody's pay changed and you got to let them know what their new salary might be out there, right? Just some basic examples, but they cover all those little areas inside of HR. And really what we're doing to generate these types of documents is we're using a product called Strato. So Strato, we created a couple of years ago. And really what it allows you to do is dynamically create content and letters inside of SuccessFactors. It also works with on-premise or cloud-based ECC-based systems as well. But Employee Central, as we know, is the modern way to do things in the SAP ecosystem. So that's where our primary focus is going to be: Employee Central, and then of course, recruiting. Sorry. Because what it is, it does allow you to build powerful documents, right? If you're used to the standard SuccessFactors system out there, you have to pick a template. You might have to edit it. There's this whole token process in the background just to get it generated. Ours are smart. They're conditionally formatted in that you'll see in our use case, we can take a bunch of your templates and consolidate them down to one, right? Because what the document generation solution can be is smart to say, hey, this guy's over in this area of this organization, this girl's in this area of organization. The content should be totally different based on where they work, based on their employment types. Excuse me. We kind of allow that smart logic to be inside of the document, and it's all in real time. So we read directly out of SuccessFactors, right? What you're going to see today is when we generate some documents out there, it is real-time data coming directly from the system. For those of you who are global organizations out there, there's full translation out there. The project that I did work on, we had documents in different languages. So depending on either the language of the recipient, and in some cases, even the person generating it, we had to adjust the language that was going to be used out there. What you're also going to see today is what we call Strato Automate. It's a very powerful workflow engine. And I will explain to you what I mean by workflow versus other types of workflow out there, but it makes that whole automation process, and I'm going to talk about maturity levels later, possible with the Strato solution out there. We also have a digital signature tool. For those of you who are on the fence about different signature products out there, I'm going to take you a little step through mine, or at least give you the background on it. Because it works slightly different than the other ones out there, but it's pretty cool. So that said, Strato is a full function document generation solution with all the bells and whistles and features that you would expect to get from an automated document generation solution out there. And really, we can talk about document generation, right? If you've ever done a mail merge, that's kind of what we're doing, right? We're taking data and inserting it where it needs to be. But then we have to talk about workflow. And when I talk about workflow, I talk about documents. It's really the routing of that document and who needs to see it, who might need to sign it, who might need to approve it along its process. For example, you might have just a basic compliance document, like your policies changed. So you're like, all right, we got to send this document out to every employee and they need to sign it. That could be an example of a workflow where the document's generated, goes to the employee to sign it. What you're actually going to see today is a more complex set of workflow where it's not just going to the candidate for signature. It might have to go to the recruiter to make adjustments before it then goes to the hiring manager for final rubber stamp approval, and then goes out to the candidate for signature, and then of course stored back into SuccessFactors out there. And we could go, through this all day of the different types of scenarios that are out there. But what I'm getting at is Strato has the capability that if the person exists as an entity or somebody on someone's record inside SuccessFactors, we can send these documents around for editing and approval until it finally gets to the final recipient out there. So that's what we call Strato Automate, but you refer to it as workflow if you've heard of it in the past. The cool thing about Strato is we are 100% integrated. We always get the security questions towards the end of these webinars out there when we talk about Strato, but it is SAP certified. We are built into the complete single sign-on system out there. So you're literally signing in to SuccessFactors. We're reading all the permissions and all the role-based permissions out there for the data access. We're using the standard OData API out there to talk to this. And you'll even get a flavor for the intelligence services because of the way SuccessFactors has built their system out. They have some automated things that fire off to make some really cool things that we can do with Strato today. And really, this is the whole goal of having a product like this. What I tell people is I'm trying to get you to a different level of maturity with your document generation. So AJ put that poll out there where some of you aren't generating documents. Some of you are doing it manually. So there's different levels of this. Like level one would be you literally are out there and you have like your Microsoft Word template stored on a shared drive. And somebody's like, I need my confirmation of employment statement. So you download that template, you go into SuccessFactors, figure out their name, their hire date, you put in the Word document, and then you manually open up Outlook and you send it off to the employee, right? So that's a pretty manual process out there. Step two would be you have some sort of system that at least at minimum generates the document for you. So you might say like, all right, I need a letter of offer. Press the button, letter of offer pops up, right? Completely filled out the way it should be. But then you still have the routing and the maintenance of that process to go through. And really what you're going to see today is that we kind of what I call level 3 maturity, where not only can the document go to who it needs to go to, it can even fire off automatically. So really, once the process has been started, it's kind of like a set it and forget it type idea out there. And that would be, full maturity when it comes to document generation. And I will show you that today through our offer letter process. Now, what did we do with a customer? I spent a good part of 2020 working on this customer. So this customer is a very large mining operation. They're definitely one of the captains of their industry, if there is such a thing out there. And really what they were looking for was a solution, an affordable one, mind you, to help them with their document generation. They had some disparate recruiting processes out there. And even they had some HR scenarios I can talk to as well, even though this is primarily based on recruiting, but they were trying to improve it, right? You'll see in the next slide, the actual details that go with it. And really what we achieved was we took their very complex process, and it was complex because of, they're multinational, they're mining, right? So there's lots of different contract workers going in and out all day. And we simplify that more or less, right? So really the details of this are they've got about 36,000 associates. So you can imagine, and a lot of contract work, short-term stuff at different mines around the world. Lots of offer letters and contracts going out there. And I also say the word contract, at least in the United States, an offer letter is typically not that large. What I found doing global business is contracts in different countries can be significant. In fact, most of the contracts and offers that we sent out for this particular organization were 20 plus pages out there with a lot of detail and a lot of things that needed to be updated depending on which country we were sending that letter to out there. And really they had about 250 of these things. So what we did was we took all the logic and everything that went into making these different letters, and some of them were in multiple language, and we cut it down. So instead of having 200 templates you get to pick from, now you've only got 20. But even with that, it doesn't matter because we have this whole designated workflow engine that will decide based on what type of employee they are, where the requisition sits, who's the hiring manager, what's pay scale, group, and grade. These things were, we literally had 14 or so different criteria to determine which document would be created out there. The system handled it for them. So now through their recruiting process, they're not sitting there and taking that time going, all right, we got to do this mine over here. This person is this grade. They work in this area of the organization, blah, 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 and take that 20-minute process and then go search for the exact template that they need. The system now does it for you automatically out there. And you can see through that, there is some significant savings. I won't go through all the numbers in detail out there, but when you get this slide later in life, even though it took us, 4 to 5 months to do the full implementation, the cost savings were significant. And most of our implementations are not that long. This just happened to be a large one out there. So yeah, definitely. I tell people you can be a hero when it comes to document generation. People are always wondering, how do we save money? How can we save money at our organization? Well, you probably have some document processes out there that could use a little help to reduce the time that people are spending on this, because it can be arduous at best. Because really, why did we, what it really boils down to though for us is why did we win, this engagement, right? So where our platform is designed to be completely integrated with SuccessFactors, right? So that was one thing, right? Reading all the role-based permissions. We're also a co-innovation company, right? So our customers, they all have different needs. Some are very small, some are very large, but even the small ones, they get a very complex business processes that they have to go through. We will co-innovate with you, right? We've gone out and said, all right, you need this business process. We'll get it to you by this date, et cetera out there. We do have scalable licensing when it comes to the Strato product. So when you look at other document solutions out there, they might be like, it's a whole boatload of X amount of dollars because we're giving you the whole thing. We'll break it apart. right? If you just need offer letters, if you just need, salary statements and things of that nature, we do offer flexible licensing to get that done. Because it is, in my opinion, I think document generation is a phased approach, right? You set up one business process, find the effectiveness of it, and then scale that out, right? You don't need to go full bang, like we're going to automate every document in our company by the end of 2022. Phase it, right? Phase it out there. And of course, we built a signature service out there because it was highly more cost effective than going with some of the other third parties out there. And and we've been working with this customer for a while. So we've been working with them since 2018. We kind of had a bit of a reputation with them as being a solid provider, if you would. So they trusted us to pull this off, and we did. And with that, now that you know kind of what we did and why we did it, let's see what that actually looked like out there. So what I'm going to take you through today is how you would generate a letter of offer using the Strato system out there. And there's a dynamic way to do it, an automatic way. I'll show you what that looks like, but we are going to kick it off by hand just for the sake of demonstration out there. And this does have a bit of a complex scenario to it, right? It's what happened here, and this is one of these customer specific business processes. The letter, once it becomes approved, the offer process, once approved in SuccessFactors, this letter automatically fires off. So it goes through this workflow engine to determine, what letter needs to be done, where it needs to go. And then what it had to do is it had to go to the recruiter, because the recruiter might have needed to edit parts of it. As I said, we have all this conditional formatting and complex rules we can build into the system. People, one, want a set of eyes to take a final peek at it to make sure it's good. And two, there are some things you just can't code for. So what the document allows you to do is once it's generated, the recruiter, we can set certain areas of the document that they're allowed to edit so they can make perhaps manual changes that would never be in an official offer or something outside the realm of what they've stored in SuccessFactors. All right, so the recruiter says, cool, I made my edits. Let's send this over to the hiring manager. The hiring manager then gets to review it and either rubber stamp it or send it back with some comments. And then finally, of course, it's going to go to the candidate for signature. And once they sign it, everyone gets notified. The offer status actually gets set automatically to accepted, and the document gets stored back into the requisition itself for that candidate. So let's kind of take a look at how this works. Now, let's hope I didn't get logged off of anything. I refreshed all these windows multiple times. So let's just text that process again. And it looks like Zoom will not hide itself. Just give me 1 second here and see if it'll go back away. Nope, but we can move it down here. AJ, do you see my Zoom bar in the way? Are we good?
No, I don't see it.
Perfect. All right. Well, session's about to expire. Hold, please. Let's just keep these working so we don't go out, because there are 3 different areas of this aspect, right? There's the actual requisition itself. So if for those of you who've never seen SuccessFactors recruiting or have seen it, we're working with standard SuccessFactors recruiting, nothing fancy out there, right? We have this guy, Nitesh. He's applied for a project manager position out there, and he's gone through the, he's gotten set to offer created. And what I talked about, the automatic process of this is there's SuccessFactors intelligence services. And when certain things happen, either in recruiting or in Employee Central, actually, it fires off certain events. And Strato can read those events, right? So we can tell SuccessFactors, I will not get into the technical stuff, but if anybody after the fact wants to know exactly how this works, SuccessFactors intelligence services will say, hey, somebody just took Nitesh's offer status and sent it and turned it into approved, right? So this thing's now been approved. And what would happen is, I turned it off for the sake of this demo because I do want you to see the manual dashboard as well. This thing would fire off its business process, the one I talked about, going to all those different people out there. But in reality, that's just one business process. When it comes to document generation, you could have a variety of business processes that you're going to do. Maybe you're sending on the recruiting side, you have to send a rejection letter. Maybe you're sending the tips and tricks for the interview process because they're in the interview phase. Maybe you're in Employee Central and you're sending a salary change statement and it's some ad hoc thing that you can't actually get an intelligence service for. The way Strato works is, I'm just going to pop over here to my SuccessFactors dashboard. Strato can be embedded directly into your SuccessFactors homepage, right? So you can see here, I have my North American document dashboard out there. So for processes that aren't automatic, or you just need to generate a letter, your employees could say, all right, let me go to my dashboard. And again, we're primarily focused on recruiting today, but these the documents that we can generate here can cover, the variety of information that you might want to generate out of SuccessFactors, like building confirmation of employment details. And this is actually a self-service one. That was actually a component of this mining company too. We also deployed some Employee Central self-service documents like visa statements, confirmation of employment details, travel documents and things of that nature that employees could go get. So that was another cost savings there. Instead of having HR generate it, the employee could do it. But in our case, you can see up top here, we have recruiting. And a recruiter might have different business processes that aren't automated that they want to send letters out for. But in this case, we're going to we could kick our letter of offer right from here as well. But you can see here, I've kicked this guy off a bunch of times earlier today, which is good, right? Because apparently right now, when you start the demo, it doesn't want to fire off, and that's fine. Because I've set this up so we can kind of traipse through without having to sit and let the workflow finish out there so we can see what it would actually look like. So in what would have happened, either automatically or if I manually kicked it off, a workflow would have been fired away. And you can see there's a lot of steps in these workflows. This is my workflow monitor down here. We'll just take a quick peek, right? So it's been generated, a third-party application. I use SuccessFactors called Strato. It generated the letter of offer. This one's now with the recruiter. I'm sorry, the recruiter part is done here. It's now with the hiring manager. And what does that actually look like, right? So the idea behind this is it gets kicked off and then it goes to the recruiter. Well, let's go see what a recruiter would see inside of Strato. So what a recruiter gets, and this is what most people would get, is they would get a nice email, right? This is the recruiter's email box. So it'd be, from the best run HR department. This is the Strato demo recruiter. This is Tessa Walker, for those of you familiar with SuccessFactors demo systems, right? Encloses a letter of offer for Nutesh, who applied to the project manager role. Do you wish to approve this process? And they get a link out there. And what the link allows them to do is actually see the document. So this would be an example of a letter that we generated out there for, he's working for a job in North America, right? And there's a couple things about this offer. This is a somewhat basic offer letter. It's only one page where we're telling the employee or the candidate what's their salary. We're going to give them what's their bonus. And this is all being pulled dynamically from SuccessFactors recruiting, some basic benefits. And you even see things like reload. Reload would be one of those things that's filtered because on this application, or requisition, relocation allowance is listed. If it wasn't listed, the document wouldn't have pulled it. But what's important about this step is the carte blanche that we give the recruiter. You can see that this area is editable, right? So they have the ability to sit here and say, all right, we can put some additional information in here. You will also get a 401k match at 100% of your, let's say, first 6% contribution, or whatever other rule that this person might have negotiated and things of that nature that don't end up inside of SuccessFactors. So what this allows the manager to do, the recruiter, is once they've made their updates, they can then send it to the hiring manager, right? The system is smart enough to say, what's the next step? So we're telling the recruiter, in this case, what's the next step? And they would press the send button and it would go to the hiring manager. And the hiring manager also, as you can imagine, would get an email, right? They get an email. Let's go to their email box. Again, same email to the hiring manager, or say, dear Maya, this is Maya Cooper now. Please find a letter of offer. It was already approved by Tessa Walker, right? So it's letting you know where it came from in case you have a bunch of recruiters recruiting for you. And then they can, of course, approve it. Note these emails, they do have graphics and text. These are actually generated with our Strato documents generator as well. So if you need prettier, nice emails to go out to your different levels of organization, they can be built inside of Strato as well. Now, the hiring manager might have some different options. They might just be like, no, we're rejecting this. It's done. I don't like this guy. We're not hiring him. They could even request a change, right? So they could request a change, send something back to Tessa Walker, and they can, have the back and forth regarding this letter, which is kind of nice. But in the end, of course, let me just get to my close button. In the end, of course, they might accept and sign this document. And we didn't see it in the first one, but we will see it when we finally get to Nitesh, right? So Tessa has signed this digital signature. Maya is, of course, going to sign it. We'll just go with that for now. I think we can maybe give her a better font, right? So this is our Strato signature service out there. You can see it works very similar to something like DocuSign. You can, of course, draw your own signature out here if you want to. You can upload a signature if you need to. but it's a very similar process, but it's baked into Strato. Do we support DocuSign and Adobe Sign? Yes, we do. Do we like our signature service? Absolutely. So now Maya has signed our document. And finally, in the end, it's going to go to the candidate, right? Sorry about that. Nitesh, he is our Strato demo candidate. He's going to get an email, right? And then, but the thing about Nitesh is he might not have an account in SuccessFactors. He might just be a recruiter, right? Because all this stuff, the fact that they can view this data, it's all being done actually through a secure layer to make sure no one's getting access to things that they're not supposed to see. For Nitesh's part, he's going to have like a little password, right? You got to enter your first name. So somebody with a link can't just sit there and open these things. Sometimes you might even do like, a combination of your birth date, year and month. I've seen that one before. And then Nitesh gets his final letter of offer, which is cool. Nothing fancy. We've already seen it. He signs it. And life is good. And not only is it good, this workflow is set up to actually change his status in recruiting and also store it back into his profile. So obviously we've run a few of these in the past. If we're back in his recruiting profile, we can see here, there's offer letters. I'm on the wrong screen. Great, on the wrong screen. Oh, that's David Lutz. How did we get to David Lutz? Oh, because I saved Nitesh. Right, candidates, sorry, everyone. You just don't drive, right? So there's Nitesh. You can see now he's accepted the offer. It went from approved, which would initially fire it off. The workflow itself said, all right, he signed it. So let's go ahead and set this to accepted. So again, taking the recruiter out of there, she doesn't have to, or he doesn't have to do that. And then of course the offer letter gets assigned and attached back into the actual requisition itself for record keeping purposes. And it's all good, right? Oh, we want to see the signed version. So there it is with everyone's signature out there. We just have a few more minutes. So really people sit there because what we have usually on these webinars is we have some business folks, we have some technical folks. It's where did all this stuff come from? Because when you think about a process like this, it looks fairly complex to set up, but it's really not. What we've tried to do with most of our solutions out there is build a no code based service that we call Strato that allows you to do all these cool things. So I'm just going to go here to my Strato administration. So again, it's all linked into SuccessFactors. And I'm logged. That's why I didn't greet somebody before. Somehow I am not who I'm supposed to be. Sorry. I don't know how those permissions got hosed, but that's why I didn't pull Nitesh, because for some reason my I think my session cookie might have gotten a little messed up, but that's okay. Right, so now let's try Strato admin. There we go. So in my library here, right, recruiting templates, letter of offer. These are all the emails that got fired off. We're not going to go look through them because they're emails. But eventually you do have this fine letter of offer. And we do try to make it simple to build these things out. If you're used to the standard document process in SuccessFactors, you're used to that whole, we got to build a token on the back end. And then once we get to the template, we got to use that token and know its name here. Here's our letter of offer. We're literally searching for fields we want to put in there through a simple mail merge type process where we can say, hey, this is dear first name. Maybe we want last name in here as well. All the fields that are available inside, and we're looking at recruiting right now, right? The job application, the job offer, the offer letter itself, the job requisition, all of these fields are available for us to get at. The candidate's last name, and boom, last name has now been added. It works the same way for the content filtering. We won't get into that today, but all these bits of content that you see out here, we can filter on based on certain criteria, like stock options, right? Stock options out here. We didn't see this paragraph actually when we generated it because their stock options packages had to contain a yes, and the actual option dollar had to be greater than 0, right? So it's very intuitive. You're not sitting here writing code to generate these PDFs out there. Kind of all works together within the SuccessFactors side. And then of course the Employee Central side. We didn't touch on that today, but all those examples that I mentioned to you, we've also done in the past. And they can follow the same type of workflow routine that we have. I'm sorry, they can follow the same type of workflow that we've done here with recruiting, except perhaps they're following around people in Employee Central, like HRBPs and things of that nature out there. So the process is limitless if you got the data inside your system. And with that, I think that probably got me to where I need to be in this demonstration. So just to follow up, and then I'm going to kick it back over to AJ real fast. Let me turn this thing to present again. Right. These are some of our other customers that we haven't listed. Generally, the employment life cycle seems to be a big deal these days. Hires, fires, terms, position changes, pay changes. We see a lot of those things. Recruiting is also very big. A lot of times these two departments don't talk to each other. It all depends on your organization, where talent requisition sits. So usually if you're fixing your recruitment process, if you want to fix your employee lifecycle process, sometimes we have to pull in some different groups out there. The Pixel Perfect Talent Card, that thing's fun. So we have the ability to do that in Strato as well. And we make it just as easy as you've seen kind of with the offer letter process, because this is actually a very complex thing to do in standard SuccessFactors, but it is a cool process out there. This one I didn't work on, but this goes to show you this different digital signature providers. Certain countries require that you use certain digital signature providers. We do have the ability to enhance the solution to do those types of things. And we obviously focused a big deal on the recruitment side of the house today. Offer letters are one of those things that everyone has to do. Some are simple, some are complex, but I hope I've showed you today at minimum a way to automate that process. You can imagine the amount of time that it would take a recruiter and hiring manager to review and do all this stuff, where we literally sat here and in under 15 minutes pushed this process through and made the decision to to give a candidate an offer letter. So with that, I'm going to turn it back over to AJ. I'd like to thank you for your time today, everyone.
Thanks, Stephen. Before we get to Q&A, the one thing I do want to do is bring up one more quick question. Poll question on the screen here. So make sure I bring that up here. Stop sharing that. Bear with me one second. So we've spoken with a lot of SAP SuccessFactors customers about how their organization uses employee or candidate documents. And one of the things that we like to do is to find out more about what customers are doing. So we have an opportunity here. We'd love to get your input or your opinions and have you participate in a one-time virtual market research session with a member of our team at SpinFX IT to simply talk about how your organization uses documents. I'm going to leave the poll question up here for a minute. If you're watching this on demand, that you won't see that poll question. So the information is on the screen that you can see there, how to contact us. So hopefully, we'd love to have you participate in that and just ask you questions about what your organization is doing, the pain points you might have, and the opportunities that you think are available for improving document processes. So if you want to take part in that, please do click on that. And if you're watching on demand, just send the email to what you see there on the screen. So thank you to everyone for your input on that. I'm going to end that poll right there. So let's go to Q&A. Stephen, we've got some questions in the queue, and I'm going to try to get through as many of these as we can within the time we've allocated. So the first question is, can we steer the language of the document based on logged in users' selected language, or for applicants as in their preferred language if it's different from the logged in user?
Ooh, that's a really good one. No, because the approval process, depending on if you're going to a different route, when you approve that PDF was built in the language that you typed in. So if you're generating it in one and then you want it to go to another, it's not like a live translation out there. So that one's going to be tough. If you're not changing the content at all, you're just saying, is this the right document? And then when it sends, you want to send the other version of it, that I think we can do.
Okay. Is it possible to insert different components to documents by conditions provided by values coming from SuccessFactors? For example, company 1 is using additional work agreements, while company 2 is providing specific equipment that's part of the contract.
Yeah. So what we've done, I mean, you can even, it's not even just content. You can do like entire pages of a document. So we would have, one side of this, like this, the top, let's say the offer letter is 20 pages, right? The first two are standard across the org. The middle two are 100% different based on which area of the org is they're working, what type of agreement that they have out there. And then you can even, of course, within that section, get down to the line item to say, all right, this is a XX agreement. We need to have this verbiage. This is another agreement. We need to have that. So as long as the field is, and in some cases, even if it's not, we did have to upload a template. I did actually have to upload a spreadsheet once, because Strato will store spreadsheets as well that had logic in it that no one had in SuccessFactors. So they had some rules like, all right, if it's these criteria, read the spreadsheet and have the content put out there. So yeah, it's really based to get down to it. It's if the field's in SuccessFactors, if you have some sort of spreadsheet with the logic, we can upload that to Strato and it can read that. And then it can read also ECC data. So we had some work schedule rules that are T528A that only existed in SAP, but the verbiage and the content for that, when their work agreement was based on their work schedule rule. And we actually had to pull that out of ECC to do it. AJ?
Okay. Next question, regarding SuccessFactors recruiting and business rules that we can create for offer letters, what is the main advantage to delivering different offer letters if this solution is used? So if they're using Strata, what's the main advantage for that?
Well, I'd have to backpedal on that question because it's not, I wouldn't say if it's an advantage. It depends on how many different business rules that you have set up and the maintenance of that. So if you're happy with what you got, I'm not saying reinvent the wheel. If you got all those business rules done, if you have a process going forward where you're continually adding those business rules because they can be complex, I can tell you my business rule generator is slightly easier out there. And then it boils down to the content, right? So when I find more and more orgs, when I'm talking to them, especially the recruiting department, is my letter's got to look good, right? We're going after a talent pool that doesn't exist anymore, right? Good help is terribly hard to find. I'm applying, when I think of it this way, if I'm applying for the same job at two different companies, but they're almost exactly the same pay, if I get a better looking offer letter, I might go work there. That's just one of my thoughts on that process. I hope I probably didn't answer your complete question because I know it was based on business rules. But I did my best.
Next question, are there any restrictions on who can be added within the workflow?
It's easiest if the person already exists in SuccessFactors. So what do I mean by that? We did one for a Midwestern insurance company where they had like 3 other levels they wanted to go to besides the recruiter and hiring manager. And I can't remember what they were off the top of my head. But we did change their business process in that when they created the requisition, they were entering that person's personnel number now on the requisition. So we created new fields to allow that workflow to be automatic. Why did we do that? Sure, could we have put that logic in a spreadsheet that if it's this person here, go do that? But that's a spreadsheet, right? It's not dynamically updated. You really want that as part of your core business process going forward. So we have done some business process tweaks, but as long as their personnel number or user exists somewhere as part of that process, like in a requisition application, if we're talking about recruiting or an employee central as a relationship, HRBP, one of those things out there, we can send them a document.
Okay. I know Alexander asked a question if this is for me, I guess, if we're going to provide this, the link to this video, and we will anyone who registered for this session will get a link to watch this on demand afterwards. So I did see your question in there. Next question for you, Stephen, and then we still have time. Is there a cost to use your signature stuff, and is there any licenses involved?
There are licenses involved, but I can tell you it's drastically cheaper than Adobe Sign and DocuSign. But I would have to put you in touch with an account representative to answer that fully.
Okay. Next question, another costing question. Is the costing based on the templates or on an annual subscription?
It's usually templates on an annual subscription, actually. Again, we need to talk to you about an account rep. It does depend on, what you're getting, because obviously we have documents, we have workflow. You might just be, we only want the recruiting module. We only want Employee Central. We only want one offer letter for the next 3 months to see if this is going to work. So there's a variety of different elements that are going into the cost based on how much, and we're going to look at it for how much time it's going to take you to work with us and how much time it's going to take us to work with you, depending on the implementation.
Would a candidate sign in to their SuccessFactors account to view and accept the offer letter? And once accepted, will they be able to see a copy in their candidate profile?
We actually, yes, so it should be there. We also send, you didn't see the final emails that got kicked off in that process. The candidate, the recruiter, and the hiring manager all got copies of that final signed agreement. In the case that I showed you, this person did not have a SuccessFactors account, which I've seen before, in that I had to punch in a username for them as like an encrypted thing for him to get in. But in general, if they're following a standard process, they would have a SuccessFactors account. And yes, they would see all that and get copies.
Can we pull information from a third-party agent such as LinkedIn?
No, not at this time.
Okay. And is the permissions from the role-based permissions in SuccessFactors?
Well, I'll tell you this, and I don't know LinkedIn off the top of my head. So AJ, hold that second question.
Sure.
The generation portion of it is called by, so what you saw today, when you flip that status in SuccessFactors itself is really just sending an API call to Strato, right? So LinkedIn, I don't know what their API calls are off the top of my head, but obviously they do integrate with other systems. So if that, because I know you can get hired through LinkedIn and all that. If they do have a system that would push data from LinkedIn to Strato to allow Strato to generate a letter, i.e. would have to have the recruiting application data and all that stuff in it, then yeah, that could work. But off the top of my head, I don't know.
Yeah, you can't speak to the LinkedIn API directly if you haven't used it, right? So the next question, as I said, was the permissions from the role-based permissions in SuccessFactors?
Yes.
Okay, easy. I like the one-word answers. Is it possible to create certificates from an LMS, or from LMS, I should say?
No, we don't have learning. Learning is that one API they have out there that's just, in the words of Taylor Swift, one of these things is not like the other, right? It is highly complex to use, and it's not the standard OData that all the other modules are. So we have not yet implemented it. We talk about doing it all the time. So if you have a major use case where you could find some cost savings into it, let us know. We'll see about hooking you up.
I come for the Taylor Swift quotes. That's why I'm here. So next question, we got two more, and I know we've got 2 minutes, so this is good. Can we still have workflow for checking and approving offer letters within SuccessFactors without using Strato?
For the final, to actually view the letter that was generated, no. So if you're going to view the letter that's generated and approve that, it has to be done through the Strato system.
Okay. So the last question I've got in the queue, does the offer letter show up on the job rec like it does with the standard SuccessFactors offer letters when you look at the candidate on the job rec?
Yeah, I pulled that up at the end and I pulled it up real fast, but yes, it is there.
Okay. If you want to just roll the next slide with your contact information up there, because I know there's always questions after the fact that people want to ask. So there's Stephen's email address. My email address is there. And if there's things that you think about 2 hours from now and you want to reach out, please do let us know. We're happy to work with you on those questions. And I want to thank everyone for the time today. This, again, it's one of my favorite topics to cover, and there's so much we can do. We could do this for hours, and to kind of boil it down into 45 minutes, give Stephen a lot of credit for that. So thank you so much, Stephen, for all of your efforts on there. And thank you to everyone for joining us today. We had a good group of people in here, some great questions. So thanks again to everyone for joining us. Hope we'll see you again at another SpinFX IT webinar in the future.